A select committee inquiry into reading has recommended a revamp of literacy teaching in New Zealand, in particular a return to phonics, where children learn to read by sounding out the letters and words, cat, for example. The inquiry has been described as groundbreaking by one of New Zealand's foremost literacy experts.
It's called Jolly Phonics, sounding out letters, and it's made a huge difference to the reading abilities of these West Auckland school children.
Because it's so simple, that's really what the key is. It's not complicated, it's not expensive, it's accessible for all, really. And I think a lot of our parents, I've never met a parent who doesn't want the best for their children.
Parliament's Education and Science Committee agrees. It's unanimously recommended the government bring back phonics. It's also urging the government to set up a national literacy service, introduce tougher literacy teaching standards, and train all primary school teachers in phonics. It also wants the government to urgently research literacy levels and investigate making classes smaller. Under the current whole language method, kids learn words with the help of clues, like pictures and sentence meanings. Committee member and ACT MP Donna Awatere-Huata, who initiated the inquiry, says there should be a balance between the two.
If you look back at 1970, when we were #1 in the world, there was no gap at all between great readers and poor readers, none at all. Since we did away with phonics and that whole 30-year crusade started against phonics, we've actually gone from there to having the biggest gap between good and poor readers in the world.
An estimated 1 in 5 students entering secondary school are illiterate, as are 80% of Māori unemployed and 75% of all unemployed. One of New Zealand's foremost literacy experts explains.
Because of the way that literacy instruction has overemphasised certain characteristics and got out of balance, and underemphasised the essential importance of children learning basically to crack the code.
The Primary Teachers Union NZEI opposes the idea of going back to phonics. It says more energy should be put into at-risk students instead. It's now up to the government to decide what to do. Astrid Smeal, 3 News.
Now, later in 3 News, we'll take a closer look at teaching children to read using phonics.
As we reported earlier in the program, a parliamentary inquiry has found that more needs to be done to help our kids learn to read. The report wants teachers to use an old-fashioned technique called phonics, but that's caused a stir in the education establishment, which for years has been discrediting the teaching method.
Committee surrounded favourite
Reading is not a problem for these 2 boys, and their father says it's because they've been taught the old-fashioned way.
The boys have just come from the library with armfuls of books. And although my boy Hugo is a physical type of boy, I think, again, anyone who knows him will say that he's always found with his nose in a book. They've got a genuine love of reading, and I feel phonics has helped to foster that.
Allan Dewar was one of many parents who was inspired by the teaching of Doris Ferry. This elderly teacher, once featured in a 2020 program, has shunned modern teaching techniques and continues to privately teach children to read by phonics, the old-fashioned way where kids learn by breaking down and sounding out words.
We come up here with our at bat, cat.
Yet the method currently taught at schools is called the whole language or contextual approach.
The dog hid in the shed.
The approach does incorporate some phonics, but the main emphasis is on reading for meaning. Yet now a parliamentary inquiry wants a return to the past, to some back-to-basic phonic teaching, and that's concerning some education specialists. Richard Ward, who trains teachers, isn't convinced there's a crisis in reading standards and doesn't think the clock has to be turned back.
If you took a solely phonemic awareness approach to the teaching of reading, I'm afraid then that you're not necessarily supporting comprehension. It's a case of a balance.
In education circles, there's still a huge debate on whether classroom reading standards are actually declining. But what today's parliamentary report shows is that there's a deep unease that not only are our children not reading as well, but that our teachers are not teaching as well. And as Doris Ferry has shown, time and a good teacher can make all the difference. Stephen Parker, 3 News.